Reddit. What was the most awkward experience you've had in school? In first grade I had to sit down to take a spelling test and I was kind of thirsty. I went to the water fountain and, with first grade logic, filled my cheeks with water thinking that I could savor it for the whole test. I figured that I could swallow little sips of water throughout the test and be nice and hydrated throughout. This plan backfired when about 5 minutes passed and my cheeks gave way, leading me to spit all of the water straight onto my desk and test. So now there's water everywhere and my test is ruined and my teacher walks over and says, "Why is your desk all wet?" My only response was, "I don't know." No one asked me any more questions after that. A sincere enough "I don't know" can do miracles. Our kindergarten classroom had a private individual bathroom. I guess I was really distracted and didn't notice I had not closed the door to the bathroom. I basically started taking a crap with the entire class watching me. Everyone was silent. They were in awe of your confidence and crapping skills. I was in high school and I was taking a crap in the restroom when a mentally challenged kid walks into the stall next to me. He then decides to climb onto the toilet and stare at me with a creepy smile on his face for about 30 seconds. Then he climbs down and pisses all over the wall of the stall. To top it all off, when he finally left he dried his hands without washing them. I was totally okay until the last line. The nerve. Year 11. Morning class. The teacher got a call and left the classroom. She came back hysterical. The problem was I couldn't discern if she was laughing hysterically or sobbing hysterically. "Geez, don't die," I quipped. It then became apparent that she had been indeed sobbing. Turns out her mother had died during an operation. This was quite possibly the worst day of school in the entire 12 years. I don't think the teacher heard what I said, or maybe she knew better than to call me out. While sitting in psychology one day, I watched a cockroach crawl out of a girl's pants onto the floor. The roach proceeded to crawl around for what seemed like a minute, probably much less, before crawling back up the leg of the girl's pants. I looked up in wide-eyed terror, only to lock eyes with the teacher, who shared my expression. To those asking, I had no idea how to even begin a conversation about what I had seen. That's what made it awkward. I couldn't just walk up to the girl and say, "I saw your roach," if you know what I mean. I couldn't even approach the subject with anybody else without ruining this girl's life. All I could do was always keep my feet off the floor in that class. Had to poop super bad as soon as I left for recess after lunch. I tried to go back and the doors are locked. I couldn't run around by that time. I'd poop my pants. No one else was out by then, so I pooped in the garbage can and ran to where we usually hang out. Had a boner in 8th grade math class. I was asked to write the answer on the board and the teacher wouldn't take no for an answer. I wish I knew about the waist tuck then. Grade 2. The whole class was sitting on the floor listening to the teacher read a book to us. I decided it was a good time to stick the boner I had through a hole in the crotch of my sweatpants. Teacher saw and asked what I was doing. Everyone looked. Why the frick would this be a good idea? English class, 8th grade. There I sat on my seat, oblivious to my teacher walking around the room viewing our written work from the day prior. As she was walking, she dropped some object next to my desk. I returned from my sleepy haze to the giggling of my classmates, and behold, the butt crack of my female English teacher welcomed me, her 4-leaf clover tattoo peeking over her butt, and a leprechaun staring at me from the depths of her denim with a fierce glare. I blinked several times, and eventually the pair receded back from whence they came. I've yet to forget the leprechaun's glare. She was not hot. I went to give a presentation and opened my PowerPoint file from my email, and while searching for it, whole class saw my mails, which included messages from Pornhub.com. I'm the teacher in this case. One of my grade 8 boys meant to say, "Can you teach me?" but instead he said, "Can you touch me?" Cue awkward silence as the whole class stares at me, waiting for my response. For those asking how I responded, I just said nope and continued talking about math. It did not devolve into a P film. Sorry to disappoint. 6th grade. It was pie day, so we all had to say pie as far as we could go. I was extremely nervous because I felt I was going to mess up near the start. The girl who went before me only made it to 3.141, and I thought to myself, even I can do better than that, in an attempt to calm myself down. Turns out I said it out loud. The whole class heard me, and I made the girl cry. Worst feeling I've ever had in all my years of school. I wrote an opinion article in the newspaper that my English teacher vehemently disagreed with. She told me in class that she hoped I never had children, because I would be a terrible mother. My best guy friend was in the room, and stood up for me. He went a little far, though, and told her he hoped she had a miscarriage. She was several months pregnant. She had a miscarriage. When I was in middle school I ran for student body vice president. I wasn't ambitious enough to run for president. I figured the vice president would be easy and they wouldn't have to do much. And I was probably right. Anyway, right before people voted all the candidates had to make a speech in front of the student body. In my mind, I had a great angle for my speech. All the people running for president were girls. My opponent was a girl. And I felt that the student body should be represented by members of both genders in the interest of equality. Of course, more than 20 years later I can phrase it like that, but my 11 or 12-year-old self stood up and concluded that when boys and girls get together, good things happen. That crap followed me into college halfway across the country. I bumped into a freshman who had gone to my middle school and she remembered my speech. Math teacher didn't allow me to go to the toilet. Couldn't hold it anymore. Pee on the floor, trough my pants. At least she'll always allow students to go to the toilet now. Sophomore year of high school. Asking a girl out and while I was talking to her my tongue must have moved just the right way and drops of saliva shot out and hit her in the face. I believe this is called gleeking. Awkward silence ensued followed by no first date. Yay awkward me. At least you had the balls to ask her. Calling the teacher mom by accident was easily the most awkward. All the other kids look at you like you just crap yourself. Meanwhile the teacher is at a loss of words. Happened to me once during sophomore Spanish, but hey I ran with it and called her mom for the rest of the year. I was staring at the girl I fancied whilst we were watching a film in class. I feel asleep and I apparently said frick me with a massive boner in my sleep. I had a bad habit of going commando in high school. One day, after using the urinal, because I'm a giant dummy, I forgot to zip my fly up. I came out of the bathroom, having relieved myself, and went about my business, with my dong hanging out of my zipper, not having the good sense to realize, hey, it's drafty in here. I kept walking and doing my thing. So, although I probably should have been able to realize that something was askew due to all of the odd looks and snickers I was getting, I nevertheless did not. That is, until someone went, hey, I enjoy high fives. Your dong is hanging out. Bro. Indeed, my dong was hanging out. This person was right. I did not get any high fives that day. In history class we watched Das Boot, about a German submarine in World War II, and at some point someone made a reference to Free Willy. Be free, Willy. The teacher told us to not say it again. My friends looked at each other and asked why. The teacher said, that's inappropriate. It's a porno. We never found out what he was referring to. He kept on teaching like nothing happened. Maybe you stickly man was your teacher. At the holiday dance my junior year, I was dancing with my group of friends. The song Get Low by Lil Jon and the East Side Boys started to play. I got really into the song and the part where they go, back it up. I backed it up. I wasn't working. I was just pushing my tush backwards. But I backed it up so much that my butt hit the crotch of one of the male teachers that was chaperoning. One of my friends gave me a warning, but it was too late. I looked back at him, apologized and walked away. It was so awkward. Oh my god, one of my friends did that at homecoming this year. Except, well, on a cop. We about cried laughing, she was so horrified. At a swim meet, my friend had just won his race and he broke his personal record. 15-20 minutes after his race, I saw him from the back and walked over. I then hugged him from behind and squealed about how well he did. I remember wondering why he was talking to people from the other school. I let go and he turned around. It wasn't him. I stammered something about how I thought he was someone else and walked away in shame. When I was 6 in senior infants, my teacher asked me and a classmate to take a message to 3rd class, which was my older brother's class. I was so excited to be doing this. A. Because bringing messages to other classes was fun, and B. Because I'd be going to my brother's class. So we set off for the classroom. Just as we knock, we realize neither of us remember what the message is. Panic kicks in as the teacher, a very sarcastic, Roald Dahl John Cleese kind of man, lets us in. I stand there at the top of the class silently. The teacher impatiently asks me what it is I had to say, and all I can say is I forgot, in a lisp with my hand covering my face. Doubly embarrassing because this was an Irish language primary school and I should have been speaking as Gaelic. For years after that, all of my brother's classmates would say aha god, what my shy I forgot apparently sounded like whenever they saw me. Also, it turned out the message was that my brother was absent that day. That sounds absolutely adorable. I was sitting in the dining hall one day, having more or less finished my lunch. As you do when you're that age, I was amusing myself by crossing my eyes and staring at the lights, making them move about and such. Look, this was the days before Nintendo. Okay, anyway, I returned my vision to normal only to realize I was sitting directly opposite an older kid with a serious lazy eye problem. As far as he was concerned, I'd been taking the pee out of him for the past couple of minutes. Before I could say anything, he tried to get one of my own classmates to agree to beat me up with him after school. Said classmate refused, and the bloke slunk off, rightly disgruntled. May not be all that awkward in the grand scheme of things, but I felt like a total dong for the rest of the day. This story is one of the single most baffling human interactions I've ever witnessed. So I was sitting at lunch with a few friends one day in high school when one of them goes up to get a cookie. He comes back, sits down, cookie still in hand, and stretches so that his hands are up behind his head. As he does this, an underclassman, we were juniors, he was a sophomore, walking by just grabs the cookie. We all turn to look at him and he has his hand on the cookie and is staring a hole through my friend. My friend tells him to let go and the kid just smiles and begins to clench down tighter on the cookie. My friend asks him what in the heck he's doing and tells him to let go of the dang cookie. But this kid just turns his grin to the rest of the table and begins crushing the cookie in his hand. As he starts really clenching down, my friend also lets go of the cookie and asks what the frick he's doing. The kid then completely crumbles the cookie and dumps the crumbs into his mouth, still smiling, and walks away. This kid was not friends with us, had never talked to us before, and never said a word during this whole interaction, just smiled blankly. I had talked to him a little bit before and knew he was odd, but this caught me totally off guard, and was hilarious. I guess that's how the cookie crumbles. I was by myself walking up the stairs in high school. I didn't mean to be super quiet, but I walked in on one of the super athletic football players getting head from the 200-pound water girl. I didn't even mean to be funny, but when we all looked at each other I said, well, this sucks. Yes she does. I was in the auditorium. The science teacher's husband was in there, and he was some sort of zoologist. Loved whales for some reason. Showed us a bunch of different varieties. Blue, humpback, etc. Telling us all about them, their habits. I knew a few different whales myself. He puts up a picture of a sperm whale and asks who knows what type of whale this is. My hand springs up and before he even calls on me, I shout, sperm. Everybody stared at me, some with a chuckle, as he says, yes, you're right. I was way too eager. He knew what he was doing. Wrestling practice in middle school. Some of the girls were managers, which meant they did random stuff for the coaches and got to hang out with the wrestlers and vice versa. Anyway, a couple of us were showing off doing various moves in front of the cute manager girls and in the middle of a somersault type move, right in front of the cutest one in my opinion, I released a massive fart when my butt was up in the air. Hilarity ensued. Who knows, it might have even been one of those charmingly humiliating moments in their eyes, but I was never the same, clenched tight for the rest of my junior high life. Vice versa. I was the only guy in my 7th grade English class, so all the class activities were pretty girl-centric. One such activity was a fashion show where we were supposed to bring music to play as we walked the imaginary runway. Now I didn't bring music, because I didn't give a crap. Why would I? So I tell the teacher I didn't bring any music and she says, I think I've got something for you. As I stood at the end of the aisle getting ready to make my walk, she turns on YMCA by the Village People. Now what I wanted to do was ask her, what the frick are you trying to say, but what I ended up doing was hanging my head in shame and walking the imaginary runway. You should have owned that crap and worked it, girl. I'm from Kentucky, and in high school I was a football player. I sucked at it and was constantly made fun of because I was terrible at it and type I diabetic. Have been since 17 months. Anyways, up until that point, I had never been kissed by a girl, was too intimidated by it all to ever pursue anything, and was not at the point to where I knew how to properly talk a big game. So, one day in my sophomore year, we were having a small dinner before an away game, so we would have some food on our stomachs and not starve. I was sitting at a table with some of the more popular players because a couple of them were semi-nice to me and generally kept everyone from picking on me too much. So, as I'm sitting there, they're all talking about the girls they'd fricked when one of the guys at the table looks at me and says, throw away 18,907,890. Have you even kissed a girl before? Great. Now I have to think of something on the fly. Of course I have. Dumbass. Smooth. Man. Real smooth. Oh really? Who was she? Frick. My life. I'm terrible at lies like this. Need me to tell you why I didn't hand something in? I can do that in the span of a few seconds. Need me to make up a story about some imaginary girl I fricked? Nope. Can't do it. I freeze up. You wouldn't know her. She's not from around here. Yep. That classic argument. It's irrefutable. Perfect. Right guys? Guys? Where do you meet her then? Great. I have no life. Don't ever go out. Where could I possibly meet a girl who would make out with me? I met her at a family reunion. Yep. Family reunion. That's apparently the only thing I could come up with. Not a summer camp. Not on a vacation. No. Had to be a family reunion. In We Frick Cousins, Kentucky. From that day forward, I was known as the guy who made out with his cousin. It died down a bit after that year, but it still stuck with me, popping up every now and then. Frick high school. In primary school, me and a group of friends decided it would be funny to pee over the wall into somebody's back garden. After pee into this garden numerous amounts of times, we eventually got caught, and me being the startled child I was, just turned around with my wang out and proceeded to pee all over my female head teacher. To be fair, it's really hard to stop peeing once you start. Saw the girl I had a crush on. Act cool, act cool. She's standing with two cool douchebags. Bang, I've slipped on the ice right in front of them. The three pee themselves laughing while I awkwardly pick myself up and walk away. At least she asked if I was okay, through her laughter. 6th grade. I had a crush on this girl. It was my first crush. She was a cheerleader, cute, smart, funny. I was in love. Sadly it was not reciprocated. I used to write her love letters and slip them into her locker. One day this kid, who was pretty much my nemesis since elementary school, saw me put the note in, and after I walked away, he fished it out with a paper clip. Later he proceeded to read it to most of the 6th grade class before an assembly. I was absolutely humiliated for about 2 days, till everyone forgot about it. That's also the story of how I got into my first fight. I did win the fight. I remember in 5th grade I was at the crosswalk doing patrol before school with my friend. I turned around and said, check this out, cause I thought I had a big fart coming. Turns out it wasn't a fart, it was a shot. The worst part? I was doing a presentation on Cal Ripken Jr. that day, so I had on white sliding shorts and white baseball pants. FML. Luckily I had a change of clothes, but quite a few people saw it. The good old gambled and lost. When I was in 5th grade I randomly tossed an old penny I found on the playground at school over my shoulder. Penny went over a handball backstop and into the mouth of the cutest girl in school. Said penny then contacted cutest girl's 2 front teeth and split them both in twain. She then looked like a Cajun airboat tour guide in a Louisiana bayou. I swear to Christ, I could throw handfuls of pennies at that chick's face from now until Ford Winsters became collectible and never have the same effect of ruining her looks that I did that day by pure chance. Elementary school was a difficult time after that. My physics teacher one day got a call early in the morning. The call only lasted for like 10 seconds, but when it ended, she ran out of the class all crying and never came back. A couple weeks later we were learning Newton's first law. For those who don't know, it states, an object will keep moving until a force stops it. As an example, our physics teacher used this. Imagine your aunt will be driving a car at 100 km per hour. At one point she will hit a tree. Even though the car will immediately stop, your aunt will still go flying into the tree at 100 km per hour. Once your aunt will hit the tree, not only her motion will stop, but so will her life. To start off, I was an avid drug user throughout high school. I was addicted to stimulant-based medications and would abuse them daily. One day I happened to be very upset because the school administration had taken me out of class to talk to me. It felt embarrassing. I felt it perpetuated rumors about my extracurricular activities. When I returned to class I was extremely upset and initially began to voice my concern out loud to one of my favorite teachers when she asked me an academically based question. Long story short, she said she was going to call someone for me to talk to because I was upset, and as she was about to call, I sneezed, and a giant mass of blue powder came out of my nose. I immediately wiped it away, but not before one of my other friends burst out laughing. The entire class saw, including my teacher. It was extremely intense. I'll start. When I was sitting in class, I randomly started coughing. It never stopped. Everyone was giving me the evil eye. The teacher asked me to be quiet. I asked if I could use the restroom and she sent me to the principal's office. My principal said that she'd talk to my teacher about it. The next day, I didn't see the teacher. The day after, my teacher was still not at school. We had a sub for the rest of the year. What happened to the teacher? I took a Viagra pill, had an erection in gym, walked around showing it off only wearing shorts just for shoots and giggles. Then the girls team came in, I tucked it really fast, but in such an uncomfortable way. It slipped back to baton form. Didn't notice until I hit a girl's leg with it and it hurt so freaking bad. I was standing and they were passing by jogging, so I crouched to hide it. Walked all over to the changing room crouching. Felt moist and hot under there. It's freaking blood. My scrotum was ripped slightly. I almost fainted. All the guys were laughing to this point, but thank God some of them had the courtesy to take it seriously. Even though they were laughing their asses off, they walked me to the nurse's room. I fainted over there. Still had a rocking hard erection. School, gym, Viagra. I think you have some splaining to do. In freshman year biology, I did a partner project on Down syndrome. We were presenting, and my project partner was talking about how people with Down syndrome can still live relatively normal productive lives, and often have jobs at grocery stores, as janitors. So I decided to chime in even as cafeteria workers know quite so bad, except for the fact that one of our cafeteria workers had Downs. There was a palpable feeling of, oh god, did he just say that? And my partner was too busy staring at me to help me out. I squeaked out a pathetic well, you know it's true, and stammered through the rest of the presentation. What's wrong with this exactly? Middle school was a really awkward time for me. In the county I grew up in, middle school was a mixture of the entire county. All the elementary schools get mixed up into one giant school, and then everyone gets divided into one of 4 teams. The team that I was sorted into had pretty much no one else from my elementary school, so I knew no one. I had barely any friends, and most of the kids in said team had grown up together and had decent friendships already. Gym class was also really awkward because we had to get changed for gym. This was the first time that I had ever had to change in front of other guys, so I held back and waited until everyone was gone, and then another 5 minutes before I finally changed. I realized that I was super late to gym at that point, so I made a mad dash for the gym room. They had told us that they would divide the gym class up by boys and girls, so I wasn't sure if that would take place immediately, or if they would give us an orientation first and then divide us. I opened the door to the gym room, and all I see on the bleachers are girls. I'm absolutely terrified at this point, thinking I got the wrong room. I very sheepishly asked the gym coach, are there any boys in here? The way I phrased it just made it sound so wrong. At that moment, to my horror, The gym coach points to the other side of the bleacher where I now see a ton of my classmates. The gym coach looks at me and says, "Over there, all the boys you want," which caused the whole room to erupt in laughter. That was easily my most awkward school experience. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.